Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for our very special event, To the Polls We Vote. My name is Phinda Hillmon, and I am a proud member of the Prince Hall Grand Chapter of the Order of the Eastern Star, jurisdiction of Georgia. Specifically, I am a member of the Atlanta Masonic District number 3, and I proudly serve as the worthy matron for Star of Georgia number 378. This evening, I serve as your moderator for this very worthy event. Tonight's event is very timely as it is the backdrop of early voting. I want to give a special shout out to everyone out there who stood in line today. It truly warmed my heart to see so many social media posts, and we hope that it continues with that momentum. So tonight's event is the perfect way to set it off. Without further ado, I would like to allow our magnificent Grand Worthy Matron, Deidre Wilson, to bring greetings. Please unmute.
Thank you, Worthy Matron Hillmon. Greetings on behalf of Prince Hall Grand Chapter, where I, Deidre Wilson, do serve as the Grand Worthy Matron for the jurisdiction of Georgia. I would like to introduce our Grand Chapter officers this evening. Our Grand Worthy Patron, Brother Cecil James, if you would just wave. Our Grand Associate Matron, Sister Sandra Parks. Our Grand Associate Patron is Brother MacArthur Walton. Our Grand Conductress, Joyce Gilchrist. Our Grand Associate Conductress, Sister Sally Mills. Our Grand Treasurer, Sister Kathy Henson. Our Grand Secretary, Sister Theresa Hill, and our Grand Chair of Trustees, Sister Yvette Lovely. We are so excited that our membership, composed of roughly 10,000 members, along with the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Georgia under the leadership of Corey D. Shackelford Sr., we've come together across the state to ensure that we do our part to get our family, our friends, and our community, and all of those that are requiring any assistance to the polls. I would like to personally thank you, Worthy Matron Hillmon, for continuing the effort to empower our sisters. Thank you to our chairperson for the state, Brother Jonathan White, our Grand Senior Warden, and Sister Ella Rose, District Matron of Millen District, and the entire registration committee. I'm looking forward to a productive discussion. So I will turn it back over to you. And I too thank everyone who went to the poll to vote. And if you have not voted, I will remind you all evening.
Yes. Thank you, Grand Worthy Matron. We thank you for your leadership and guidance through this planning process. For those who may not be aware, our organization has been active in communities across the state of Georgia and beyond for over 100 years. We strive to provide service to our elders, mentoring our youth, raising funds for scholarship, championing education, and advocating for matters that impact our community. As you can see, we are relentless. We refuse to let COVID-19 stop us from being shining lights in our communities. At this time, I would like to get right into the matter at hand. I would like to introduce our panel for the evening, and then I would like to start off by injecting some inspiration and hope to help set the tone for our discussion. In the words of our former President Barack Hussein Obama, it's the audacity of hope that brings us all together tonight. So after my introductions, I would like each panelist in a few words to just share with us what makes you feel hopeful for these 2020 elections. So let's get started. It brings me great pleasure tonight to introduce District Worthy Matron for Millen District number 16, Sister Ella Mobley Rhodes, who is also a member of the Beulah chapter. Our Grand Senior Warden, Brother Jonathan White, member of Villa Rica Lodge number 584, and Mr. Ray McClendon from the Political Action Committee for the NAACP. So, dear panelists, what makes you hopeful during this election season?
Well, if you want me to start, I'm already hopeful because what I have seen today alone is simply amazing. The lines, they never got out. Everybody stayed. It was just wonderful to see. In our county, we never have a line. We had a line that they were waiting between 40, 45, 50 minutes, but everybody stayed, and it was just amazing to see. I am so hopeful.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'd like to go ahead and go before you, Ray, only because if I'm last, then everyone would have said what I already wanted to say, like Mr. Rhodes just did. But I mean, if it hasn't been uplifting for you to watch the news today and see the long lines, but everyone is peaceful, everyone is being vigilant. I can honestly say that having been appointed in this position as working towards voter initiative for the state of Georgia has really uplifted me as well, because I'm actually being an integral part of the political process, not just a participant, an individual participant, but working with the entire state of Georgia, trying to motivate, educate, and mobilize members. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's never a problem following Brother Jonathan and for all that he's doing. My hope is, first of all, built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I thank God for the opportunity to be with all of you tonight. And I see a movement afoot. I see a tsunami building based upon the hard work, the determined work from coalitions and organizations like what we have here tonight. It has been extremely gratifying, as Jonathan has said, that we are seeing all across this state, different African-American organizations are coming together, churches, fraternities, sororities, organizations such as the Grand Lodge of Georgia, 100 Black men, 100 Black women. We're setting aside any differences to come together knowing that this is the most historic election of our generation and possibly our lifetime. And no one wants to look back and say, what more could I have done? And we see that being set forward right now. And so my hope is built on that focus that I see our people out here determined to make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. And that really englobes our goal for tonight. Our goal for tonight's meeting is that our viewers be inspired, empowered as family and community leaders. There's a lot of information circulating via social media, word of mouth, television and radio commercials, and even printed materials. And there's a lot of misinformation as well. And sometimes we tend to tune it all out because we experience information overload. And while we may not all be politicians, and we may not always be in the loop on current events, we all know what good leadership looks like. And we all know what that feels like. And we all know how it feels to be Black or a minority in America. And we have all been on an emotional roller coaster ride for the past few years. So based on those experiences alone, it is imperative that our voices be heard. So this evening, we want you to take away answers to these following central questions. What are the issues at stake and how do they affect me? What can we do even now as a community to mobilize for a successful outcome? And as we vote, as we go to the polls, what are the changes, the challenges, and the new practices that we should all be made aware of. So let's get right into this, shall we? All right. So during the election season, we often observe an increased amount of campaigning, a number of different strategies to engage the African American community. We see numerous church visitations, community events, promotion and marketing plans all around. But why is the Black vote so critical in this election season? And what's on the ballot that would really impact us the most?
Somebody wants to jump in?
And anyone can feel free, anyone.
Everything on that ballot is important. Every seat. A lot of times we fail to realize that our local level is where everything really starts at. They want to jump to the presidential election. Every election is important because your voice should always matter about everything and every issue, especially where you live. People take it for granted, and they shouldn't. You know, as they say, charity begins at home. Well, our lives begin at home. We need to start making sure our local leaders are held accountable and responsible, as well as when you get to your state leaders and then your federal leaders. But if you don't have it straight on your local level, it's going to be a mess where it starts there. So always keep it in mind. It starts your local level, then you go your state, and then your federal.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to add, thank you, Sister Rhodes, for that. I'd like to add that, you know, in addition to the presidential election, we are also electing state senators. One of the things we're faced with now is, rest her soul, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. She held on as long as she could. I could tell that that's what she was trying to do, to hold on past this election. But needless to say, the current administration flip-flopped on us what they did to us a few years ago, which was kept President Barack Obama from basically nominating a Supreme Court justice 10 months prior to the election. And we're here, a month, and they're holding the hearings, right? So it's not only the president, because it's the Senate that has to approve it. So we have state senators that are at stake. We have congressmen that are at stake. There's district attorneys, which, as Sister Rhodes said, would affect us on a local level. There are sheriffs that's on the ballot for this coming election, as well as the amendments that, for the most part, are written in a way that is somewhat confusing at times. But there's also local amendments or statewide amendments that are on the ballot as well. And keep in mind, I'm going to remain nonpartisan. I know who I'm voting for, but I'm going to remain nonpartisan. But I will say that for the state senator, be careful, because there are 20 plus one write-in names listed, and they're listed alphabetically. Okay, so if you want to vote for someone specifically, make sure you take the time to look at all 20 names and place your vote correctly. Thank you.
That's a great tip. Really research who you're voting for, know the names if possible before going there so that you can pick from that list. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. McClendon, I saw you nodding. You have anything that you want to add, or has all been said?
It's been said. It's been said. Totally agree.
Okay. Well, now that the adrenaline is kicking in, this might be a good segue into the next topic. Let's look at the aftermath of elections, even at the local levels that we just talked about very briefly. Here's something that I want us to unpack together for just a few moments. Voter turnout in the Black community. As a point of reference, according to the Brookings Institute, Black voter turnout was within 1 percentage point of whites in the 2008 presidential elections. And the Black voter turnout was actually higher than whites in the 2012 presidential elections. But in 2016, voter turnouts for Blacks dipped just a bit. Now, when it comes to local elections, the Black voter turnout percentages, dipped even further. Now, there are different opinions around the voter turnout, whether it's being reflective of who's running at times, whether it's a Black candidate or a white candidate. But we have also seen low voter turnout in Georgia during the gubernatorial elections. So just help us as a people connect the dots. How does low voter turnout among African-American voters affect the laws that govern us?
Well, I'll start on that one. We've done a lot of research on that at the NAACP. And from 2016, voter turnout in the Black community was down significantly. And that we turned out at a level of about between 10 and 15 percentage points lower than white voters. That race was won by 211,000 votes for the presidential election. If Black voters had voted at the same level as white voters, that would have been an additional 340,000 more votes, substantially above the 211,000 difference. So we could have made a difference in that election. Fast forward to then the gubernatorial race where we had Stacey Abrams, and she lost by 55,000 votes. In that race, again, Black turnout was low. Only 47% of Black males voted in that election. If we had voted at the same levels as white voters in that race, just in DeKalb County and Fulton County alone, that would have been close to 80,000 votes and could have potentially made the difference, not even regarding the other counties around the state. So the point is what? The point is that their voter suppression is real. Our young Black people, especially Black males, are being targeted with disinformation and misinformation. We know this now. There have been studies that have proven it. Back in 2016, we did not understand that. We did not understand why Blacks were saying, oh, well, all the candidates are the same. I don't want to vote for either one of them. As one of the earlier panelists has said, well, you know, they're not worried about the down ballot races. They don't even know about those in many, many instances. But they were getting disinformation and misinformation from the Republican campaign and also from Russian bots. And that has been documented by many studies over and over. So what are we saying? We're saying that in 2020, our goal is to get to 80% voter turnout in the African-American community. If we hit 80% with the number of people that we registered to vote in our community, we can truly change history up and down ballot. But the challenge is voter suppression and disinformation. Our people don't, you know, although many of us are comfortable with documenting where we get our media from, there are a lot of young people who are getting their information from Instagram and Facebook. And you can openly lie on Facebook. You can openly lie. So there's so much misinformation and disinformation. That's why, as Jonathan mentioned earlier, it's not just registration, but it's also education. We must inform our people over the next several weeks, and then we must engage them in the way that gets them out to vote, to understand all these up and down ballot, and we can change all of the races, including both Senate races in Georgia. And what you're doing tonight is key to making that happen.
Now, you did mention, Mr. McClendon, talking about our youth. You know, for those parents who are following us tonight with their young people also listening in, what can we do to reach our youth? Because, you know, there's no fighting the power of the digital age, you know, so we might as well embrace it. But what can we do to give them the tools or the resources so that they can get adequately vetted information?
Okay, we need to use some of the tools that they're familiar with every day, and they watch videos and so forth. One video I would encourage, and I'll try to find it as we move forward on YouTube. There's a powerful video from Yellow Pain. He's a rap artist, and he's put out a couple of powerful videos about why it's so important for young people to vote. But we need to reach them where they are and get them to understand, as Sister Rose said earlier, this is more than about what the presidential election is. If you don't care about that because you don't think it makes a difference, but fine, you ought to care about who the DA is, because most of our Black men are going to be touched by the DA. You should be DA at some point. You should care about the sheriff. We got an opportunity to elect the first Black sheriff in Cobb County. You should care about the solicitor. You should care about who you elect for local offices that are going to decide whether or not there's going to be bus service or transit service in your area. So all of those things are what we got to get our folks to focus on, that it does make a difference. We got to bring it home to them. You should care about whether there's cash bond in the state of Georgia and whether or not that goes away. Because we got young brothers locked up today because they didn't have money to pay a bond. Okay, so those are the things we need to hit them where it's focused on what would impact them tonight. And that is what's so important about this education that you all can assist in doing.
I just want to add on a small piece to that. Parents, don't go to the polls without your children. It was another thing I saw today that was simply amazing. Not only did I see the parents, they brought their kids with them. These just recently graduates, some of them that they knew if they didn't take them, they wouldn't go. They brought them with them. Take them with you. Because sometimes if you don't stay on their backs, they won't do it. But if we teach them, they'll always instill that in them to always do it later. But we got to get them there and get them started. That's the key to it.
Now, what are some of the obstacles that you encounter when you're trying to encourage people to be a little bit more minded towards voting? What are some of those challenges that you face when you're speaking with whether young or someone who is a seasoned voter? What could deter someone from actually showing up to vote?
One thing about me, I guess, because I've never missed a single election, and I never could understand it. If it's important to you, and if it was something else, nothing could stop you from getting there or doing what you wanted to do. We should have that same mindset when it comes to voting. Nothing should stop us from voicing our opinion. I don't care if it's just the dog catcher. I'm going to decide who's going to chase my dog. Everything should matter. And that's just how serious I take it. And I wish more people, especially our people, would get more serious with this, because this not only just affects us, it affects our children, our grandchildren. It does matter. It's so serious. And it really offends me to hear a person say, well, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. Everything about this matters. There are people who have died to give us this right to do this, and we're just going to throw it away. I just can't see this, and I don't understand it. And nobody should have that mindset. If these people fought for us, we need to fight for our children also.
Well,
Brother White,
counting on us to be disenfranchised by everything that surrounds us. I would have to say that one of the things that I feel sometimes works against us too is that some of the polls that are out there, they'll show, let's say, Biden in the lead, okay, by X amount of percent. So we could become relaxed and say, well, if he's ahead, then everything's going to be okay. I don't have to do this. We've been accused, I don't know how true it is, but I hope it doesn't rain on election day, okay? Because sometimes the weather may, deter us from voting. One of the things that I've done up until October the 5th is every young person that I came in contact with, I asked them, are you registered to vote? Okay, and I also kept applications in my car just in case they said no and was interested. The other thing that I do all the time, it happened today. I asked a couple of men, young Black men who delivered a mattress for us, are you registered to vote? Are you going to vote? Don't be afraid to ask that question, and it may cause you to get engaged with them to help them understand the importance of doing something like voting. Okay, so and if you just get one person to vote that was against voting, I think you made a difference. Okay, so it doesn't have to be the big groups. Just try to affect at least that one person at a time.
Now, Brother White, what do you say to those people who, are often reluctant to engage in these kinds of conversations because they feel like, politics is a very, touchy, sensitive topic, and they don't want to ruffle any feathers. So what do you say to someone who is thinking in that way?
And and Ray actually just touched on that as well. There is a young brother who I encountered that said he doesn't want to more or less vote for the lesser of two evils. Okay, he's talking about the president or the candidates for president. And I approached him with the same response that Ray just did. Hey, that's your choice. Okay, but there are other things at stake. So make sure you make it to the polls and at least vote for those other things that may be at stake. Okay, are you happy with things that have gone on for the past 4 years? If you're not, maybe you're just looking for a change. It may still be the lesser of two evils, but it still could be something different from what you're dealing with now. So ask yourself that question, at least, is whether or not you want something a little bit different from what's going on now.
The flip side of the way to add to that question too is to say, we don't realize how many decisions get made. And that's the reason why they don't want you to vote. Think about how hard they're working for you not to vote, because it affects how much you're going to get on your EBT card. It affects how much you're going to get for housing development in your community, so you'll have fair housing in your community. It affects how much transportation money will come into your community. All of these things impact your day-to-day life, and they're trying to suppress your vote so they can make decisions about how money does not come into your community versus what goes into others. And again, because we don't teach civics in high school or middle school anymore, we don't understand that there are 3 branches of government and they are all controlled through the voting process. So when we think about the president, that's just one level, but the legislative and the courts make up the other 2. This administration, because of the way that Mitch McConnell blocked Obama from putting judges in place, has put in 198 judges. Not one black judge, not one. So when our people are going into court for federal charges, again, in most cases, they're going to be going before a white judge. And we need to understand why that is so important. And that's why we vote, so that we can make sure that we have fair representation, not just in who's going to be president, but who's going to impact us in the other branches of government.
Mm-hmm. And, we talk a lot about the voter turnout, but let's talk a little bit for a few moments about, some of the mobilization efforts. And I know each of you has some experiences that you can share about, just the get out to vote effort and what that has been looking like. What have you been seeing? And do you think we've done enough? Do you think we've done enough going into this election season?
We will not know, to me, if we've done enough until it's actually over, if you ask me. But I think from what I have seen from all the organizations, not only including our own, people have gotten out there and they've shaken the bushes this time. A lot of people see that it is something at stake here, especially when you have someone with a pre-existing condition. And it's not only just our skin color, it's the white ones also, because this is real serious when it comes to our healthcare, our children's educations. We have just as many white kids in public school as we do black. So it's going to affect them also. So some of them actually do see it. And it's, like I said, it was amazing just to see the response that I've had for the phone calls that I have gotten just alone, just questions to ask and to find out information where normally you wouldn't get any phone calls when it comes to elections. I have been working in elections for 27 years. This is right now, this one I think is more shaken up than it was with Obama. But again, I see a difference. I see them moving. We're just getting started. These next few weeks will really tell the difference, if you ask me.
Mhm, mhm. Now, do you think with the global pandemic that we are in and the way it was handled, particularly in the United States, do you think that is going to have an effect on the level of engagement this time, and not only the global pandemic that we're in, but also the social injustice that we've seen an influx on as of late? Do you think that is going to be one of the contributing factors to pushing people out to want change?
Well, I'm thinking while the lines are so long, these people are not waiting to see what's going to happen next, because 1 week can make a difference in this pandemic. It's already spreading, and in a week's time, it can triple, quadruple. We don't know, but some people already are not taking it for granted. They're already moving now. That's why they were in those lines today for 4 hours. That's why they're putting these ballots in the drop boxes, because they don't want to wait. They don't know. And as I said, I'm looking for the next few weeks to be even more intense. I'm actually thinking on election day, it won't be as bad, because most people that I have talked to and that have talked to me, they're going to early vote. They already said that. And the whoever came up with the phrase plan to vote, these people have already put a plan in place and they're going out to vote.
Mhm.
I totally 100% agree with that. And that's what we need to keep pressing folks on. Plan your vote. Okay. Figure out what's the safest, most convenient way for you to vote, and then execute that plan. Whatever it is, you need to already have that in mind. If you haven't, do it tonight, do it in the morning, and then have your plan. Okay. We're telling people right now, if you wanted to vote by mail via absentee ballot, and you don't get your ballot by October the 23rd, Friday, October the 23rd, you need to go and vote early. You can do that. There's a way to do that. There's a way to go in if you have not received a ballot, and go to one of the poll workers and tell them that you want to vote in person and cancel your absentee ballot. If you have received your ballot and you still don't feel comfortable with either putting it in USPS or the drop box, you can even take that physical ballot, absentee ballot in, and give it to the poll worker and tell them you want to cancel that and you want to vote in person. But again, the whole point that was just stressed is so important. We must have a plan and know what your rights are. When you know your rights, then you can execute your plan.
Now, talk about those rights.
Can I emphasize a little more on what he was
Sure.
just saying?
Yes, please.
About those absentee ballots. If it's just been issued or you have it, all you got to do, and it's a very simple process. It's just going to take one step more than what you were already going to have to do. You have to do an affidavit to cancel out that ballot that was already issued to you, or the one that you have in your hand, and then you can go ahead and vote on that machine. Just a simple affidavit that you're saying you're going to surrender that ballot, or you have not received that ballot, and keep moving forward.
And the affidavit is on site.
No. It's on site. They have
It's on site.
Okay.
But now, if you have received it, the only thing I want to press is if you have received it,
take it with you.
Take it with you. Take it with you. If you have received it and you're still uncomfortable, if you haven't, then the affidavit's going to take care of the fact that I haven't received it and I want to vote early in person.
Now,
Yeah,
Mr. McClendon, you mentioned
I submitted for my absentee ballot over a month ago because I didn't know what the COVID-19 situation would be. And I wanted to at least be able to have a way to vote if I didn't feel comfortable in the lines. But I do plan to go vote in person during early voting. And I do have my absentee ballot with me, and my wife, as well as my daughter. We're all going to take ours in there this week and go ahead and vote in person.
That's good to hear, because I know just in speaking to people in general, that was a concern. That was a concern, whether they could still go and just physically vote, what then becomes of that ballot? Would it be counted twice? Would it count against them? So that's definitely good to hear. And then also having a plan, having a clear, concise plan on what you're going to do to vote. Before we move on, Mr. McClendon, you did mention voter rights. Can you talk a little bit more about the voter rights and knowing our rights?
Okay, we're going to be experiencing a lot of inexperienced poll workers because of the pandemic. Typically, our poll workers are retired people, and they've been doing this for years. A lot of them, because of the pandemic, are not going to be in place. And so a lot of these folks, even though they're going to be trained, that training is very short and they might not know all of the rules. You have the right to go into a polling place, and as long as you have your ID, as long as you confirmed that your registration is intact, and you can do that easily on mvp.sos.ga.gov, do not let someone talk you out of being able to vote. Even if they say you are not registered, you can demand a provisional ballot. So we have to know our rights to be able to demand it. That's another reason for voting early, so that you don't get caught up. The other part of that, again, the plan is everybody should be checking their mvp.sos.ga.gov page, which is called My Voter page. That's going to tell you all the voting locations in your county for early voting, your precinct for November 3rd voting, your current status, whether or not your address is correct, all of those things. As an example, in Fulton County, there have been 90 changes in precinct locations. 90, all right, that were not previous locations. So you might be used to voting in one location in the primary. That has changed for the general election. That is probably the case in many other counties around the state. So you need to be aware of that. We understand that in Dougherty County, for the entire county, there is one early voting location. So you need, again, plan on when you're going to go. There will be weekend voting. There's mandatory weekend voting on October the 24th, but many counties are expanding and having weekend voting on Saturday and Sunday, the 17th and 18th, and also the 24th and the 25th. That's not everywhere. So you have to check your My Voter page so you can determine for your county where there will be polling for early voting, polling places for early voting and for weekend voting.
And Ray, I just posted that website on the chat, as well as the website to track your ballots.
Awesome. And we will make sure we blast that. Thank you. Now, Brother White, I did want to ask you a little bit about some of the mobilization efforts that we have been having in our jurisdiction. We've been very active this year. We've been seeing a lot of communication. There have been a lot of meetings. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those efforts?
Sure, Sister Hillmon. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm working in conjunction with Sister Ella Rhodes to head up that effort. She's handling things on the OES side at the direction of our Grand Worthy Matron, Deidre Wilson. But there were basically three types of initiatives that we were working on, and they continue to grow. One was a voter call out, which we just completed. We were provided with the list of people to call, and I believe it was about 8 or 9 predominantly African-American counties to make them aware of the vote, okay? And, while we had to be a little thick-skinned to deal with the hangups and everything like that, it still was definitely a worthwhile effort. The other thing is we can all agree that it's one thing to get people registered, but it's more important to get them to the poll. So in conjunction with the People's Agenda, we've been added to a website called www.ridetothepoll.com. where you can volunteer as a driver. And if you do volunteer as a driver, we ask that you do it under the agency name of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Georgia. But you could also request rides from that same website. So from what I understand, there are a good amount of members across the state that have participated in that. The other effort that we were looking at embarking upon was suggested by our grand worthy matron early on back in June, and that was to hand out waters and snacks to the people that are in line. One of the things that I decided that we could even add to that is also to serve as placeholders. So if for some reason someone needs to excuse themselves momentarily, if we have enough people that are present, we could possibly hold their place in line. We have to make sure that as we do things like that at the polling places, that we have to remain nonpartisan and watch what we're wearing, okay? Our Grandmaster then put me in contact with a national person with Delta Sigma Theta, and she just presented to me the opportunity earlier this week that we can be poll watchers and earn up to $150 a day for just observing what's going on, whether it's intimidation or long lines or anything like that. And we're supposed to be provided with information as far as how to address the situation. We're not going to address it ourselves personally because we don't need the confrontation, but it's an opportunity to earn money as well as be a part of this political process. So those are some of the items that we've been embarking upon for the past couple of months. So we need to get the word out and get as much support as possible from our organization. I think Grand Worthy Matron mentioned it in her introduction. We're an organization that's 10,000 strong. We're a force to be reckoned with. Okay, we just need to utilize what we have at our disposal. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Sister Rose, you have anything else you'd like to add there?
He covered it.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit now about, what we can expect now at the polls. For those who are either physically going in, how can we prepare? Nobody likes to be taken by surprise. So what are some things that have changed that we need to be aware of? I know a few items were discussed earlier. There's been a lot of concern about the machines, even down to some counties, there not being a sufficient amount of machines at their particular precincts, which then causes unnecessary delays or long lines. So what are some things that we should just know right now as we're talking so that we can just be mentally prepared as we're going to the polls?
Well, there are two tiers to that, I'd like to talk about. One, Jonathan just alluded to, and that is we need what we're calling election protection volunteers. And he's working across the state on that, where we'll have basically poll monitors out across the 19 counties that the NAACP has identified that represent 77% of all Black voters. So that's across the entire state, from all the metro counties, of course, to Lowndes, Muskogee, Chatham, et cetera, Bibb, Houston, Newton. So we're going to be focused on those 19 counties. And we're tied in those counties to come back into an 800 number just to get information intelligence on what's going on in those counties. We saw in Virginia, as an example, that there were Trump voters, supporters who were trying to intimidate people. We've seen in locations in various states where they are putting fake drop boxes out in communities, fake drop boxes to take votes and then claim voter fraud. So we just need eyes and ears so that we're reporting this up to people who are well-versed in this, to voter suppression attorneys, et cetera. So we'll have people on the ground. And as Jonathan mentioned, there's money that can be earned for being one of those election protection volunteers. Now, for us, it goes back to plan your vote. If you need to plan on when you're going in, you need to understand that you are going to be in line. So you need to take some water, snacks, take your lawn chair, maybe even when you see that you're in a precinct or a polling location where the lines are going to be long, because what they want to do is to frustrate you and have you decide to heck with it. I don't want to do this. So have your plan in place. And I think Sister Rose said this earlier, take your whole family, make it a day out, and just get in line and y'all enjoy some of your favorite picnic lunch while y'all stand in line and wait. Like Sister Obama said, you might have to pack a lunch, you might even have to pack dinner or breakfast.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're gonna stay there until we exercise our rights.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And medicine. You know, some people end up having to get out of line because they forgot something at home. So
Great point. Great point.
And like, just if you're dealing with elderly people or people with physical handicaps, I do believe, and Sister Rose could correct me if I'm wrong, there are accommodations that could be made for you at the poll. Is that correct, Sister
It
Rose?
is correct. Usually, if there's someone handicapped, they move them to the front anyway. Anybody supposed to be 65 or older, I think that's the age of 65, 65, I think it is. I'm not sure. I don't have that sign in front of me, but they automatically can be brought to the front of the line. All you got to do is make it, bring it to their attention, someone in the office, and they will bring them forward.
I'm glad you brought that up as well, because one of the things that we can do coming out of this meeting is you need to make sure that you touch base with someone who is associated with the nursing homes and the assisted living facilities, because we need to make sure that those people have who are in those facilities have received their ballots. Because of the pandemic, we know that their families can't get in, but they have activity directors, they have other staff which by law can assist them with that process. So we can make calls to ask those nursing homes, have you made provisions to assist those people with being able to request absentee ballots, and then once they get them, to ensure that they get into the mail. And also a caregiver, what we have to be careful about is that only family members, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, etc., can physically take a ballot and turn it in. But a caregiver also falls into that category. So that's a part of what we need to make sure. So we need to make sure we don't overlook the nursing homes and the assisted living facilities in our communities, to ensure that somebody is watching over those folks to get their votes in.
okay. And I just wanted to read this out for anyone that's listening in. The website is www.ridetothepoll.com. I know we were trying to get that information earlier. Okay, well, are there any final thoughts? It seems like we have touched on a lot this evening, a lot of very rich and helpful information. We shared quite a bit of resources. Are there any final thoughts from you all? Anything that you would like to share with our viewers, our listeners?
I would need my grand worthy matron to put her mask back on. I just want you to go vote.
I feel like this was a pep rally. This was a pep rally.
I got one more.
Okay, and I want to just add one thing. Just like we have voting season, this is truly a season in Georgia. As an example, it started even before today, because there were people who were doing their mail-in ballots, their absentee ballots before today, and early voting will go until the 30th. And really November 3rd is the conclusion. So we're truly in a season. But after November 3rd, we need to be prepared that there's a counting season that will be going on, and that we don't need to be discouraged if we don't have a result on the night of November 3rd like we normally do. Now, I'm hoping we do. I hope it's going to be resounding and overwhelming. But if we don't be discouraged, because we know that the oppressors are trying to sow the seeds of confusion right now and tell you that if you don't have a conclusion on the night of November 3rd, and here's the reason why. In many states, they can't even start opening the mail-in ballots until the night of the election.
Okay.
Now, they just passed a rule here in Georgia where they can open ours 15 days before. Why is that important? It's important because when you do a mail-in ballot, and there have been 6 million done so far in the United States. When you do a mail-in ballot, you have to verify the signature, that the signature is correct. So the signature verification is the first step, and then the ballot is eligible to be counted. In many of the battleground states that will determine this election, they cannot even start the process of verifying signatures until the polls close on November the 3rd. What does that mean? That means that there are going to be a lot of votes coming in from November 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all the way through that weekend. The pollsters have already said that over 70% of those votes will probably be Democratic. So if let's say in a state like Wisconsin or Michigan or whatever, on election night, it appears that one candidate is ahead. Over the next 2, 3, 4 days, there could be changes in that. And we know that there are forces already out there that are going to tell you what? See, that's voter fraud. They're trying to steal it. They're taking it away. And we do not need to fall into that trap. The system is working. It is working. Don't let them confuse you in the same way that they've tried to confuse people about coronavirus and everything else. So we're going to be in a season of counting. We hope we get it on November the 3rd, but we need to trust in what we're doing and that the process will work, and that it might take 2 days, 3 days, it might even take a week, but we need to just keep trusting and praying, and the right result is going to come out and we're going to have a great victory. But we cannot get weary in our well-doing.
Amen.
Well, Mr. McClendon, I'm sorry,
Amen.
with the matron. What he's saying is the same process that's been happening all the time. This is just that we didn't hear about it. Nothing has changed. It's been the process all the time. And also, I want to stress this. He says it's a season. Our season is not going to end on November 3rd because there will be a runoff in January. That Senate seat that's got them 21 people in it, there's no way we're going to come to a conclusion on this election. So there will be a runoff in January. It's not over. Again, I don't care if it's the dog catcher. Decide who's going to chase your dog. Be at them polls in January.
I love it. I love it. Here's another website here I want to read out to you all. If you're interested in serving as a poll watcher, you can earn $150 per day as a nonpartisan election protection poll monitor. And the website is https / protectthevote.net. Protectthevote.net. Okay. Any other thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Madam Moderator, before
Yes.
Brother White jumps in, I thought you might want to answer a few questions on YouTube. I know one has already been addressed. What happens if you go to vote in person and you don't have the absentee ballot with you? I know we addressed that, but just a quick answer again. Also, can a non-family member drop off at an official drop box for you? And It was one other I thought we might want to just touch on. It was about the felony, about if you had a felony, just because you have been convicted does it mean you don't have the right to vote? So those three things were the matron. And so I don't have to come back, from our most worshipful Grandmaster, I'm watching you all. I'm in line with the boys, standing in line in Cobb County. I didn't want to mail in my ballot. That was too easy. Needed my boys to understand the sacrifice on behalf of our Grandmaster. I wanted to read that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Grandmaster.
To answer that question, about if you don't have the ballot with you, that's fine. You're going to do an affidavit and still proceed forward. These felons, if you have been convicted of a felon and you are off paper, they understand that better than anything. Or to put it in another term, you're cleared, but you're off paper. You have that right. They're not going to tell you that you can go vote or register and vote. But as soon as you come off that paper, as soon as you have been cleared, you've served your time and done what you needed to do, go register. Go register, and that next election, you will be a part of it.
Awesome.
So to just clarify, absolutely everything that the Sister Rose just said is correct. If someone's trying to register now, they will not be able to vote on November 3rd, but they would be able to vote for runoffs. So October 5th was the last day for November 3rd. But we still want to encourage everybody to understand that once, and that's the perfect term she just used, off paper. That's what all our young brothers understand. Don't talk about restitution or just say off paper. You off paper, you can register to vote and get them to pull their phone out and use that MVP site, mvp.sos.ga.gov, and they can register right there.
And if anyone has a ballot to turn into the drop box, can someone else turn it in on their behalf, or must they physically be present?
A family member can do it. Yes, as she said, as Sister Rose said, a family member can do it.
Yes.
All right, very good questions. Very good questions. Well, it looks like my time is up. Again, I have enjoyed you all. I hope our listeners were able to have some really good takeaways. Again, knowing what is at stake, knowing how it affects you. Are there any other final thoughts? Brother White, I see your hand. Jump right in.
Just a couple of things. I know
sure.
I'm a stickler for time as well. I just want to encourage everyone to use their social media to help educate and motivate people. Again, I mentioned earlier, you never know who you might touch by putting something out there on the wire that, encourages people to do what they need to do, whether it's showing your I voted badge or whatever. The other thing is on this Saturday at the 150th communication, I will have in my possession badges that I can hand out to anyone from across the state that wants to take that call to action to serve as poll watchers. It will identify you so that you can be that person doing that thing. So please, I'm going to have a sign-up sheet there as well. I'm sure that they'd rather we do it through the website, but needless to say, everyone isn't on the internet, but some people may want to volunteer. So we have to try and get this information out every which way we can, whether it's social media, email, face-to-face. I know I get 3 texts a day, from different organizations telling me the importance of voting. I only hope that it's going to the people that may not be voting, because I'm going to vote. All right. So that's, and just finally, thank you, Sister Hillmon, for facilitating this gathering. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. My pleasure.
And I just want to echo that. I'm dealing with a lot of different organizations across the state and really across the Southeast. And I just want to say that the what you all are doing, what has been put forward, the drive, the passion, the energy, the commitment and dedication that you are bringing to the table is as strong and as supportive of what our community is all about as anybody that's out there. As one of my colleagues at the NAACP said, and I like those Masons. I like them, and this is a sister saying, I wish I could join them. I said, no, you wouldn't join them. You join the sisterhood. No, but I like the Masons because they step up. They're doing the work. And so I just want to say we appreciate everything you all are doing. And this is what makes the difference. These national organizations can put a lot out there, but for the grassroots effort to touch people day to day, relationship to relationship, it's outstanding what you're doing. And I just want to applaud you for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank my leadership for giving me the opportunity to serve in this capacity, and anything I can do, never hesitate to call or ask. So at this time, I just want to thank you all, District Worthy Matron Rhodes, Brother Jonathan White, and Mr. Ray McClendon. Thank you all for taking the time out and for just sharing and pouring into us. I know that someone has definitely been touched by all this information here, and we just look forward to a successful outcome, November the 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a blessed evening. Good night.